The mic, yeah, that's on, right? Can you hear me okay now? Right. Hi, first of all, thanks for coming. I am from the UK and I'm from Northern UK, so if you don't understand us, then that's fair enough. If you want to grab us afterwards and go over things, we can. So I'm here to talk brown bag session on Horizon NSX and why I think it's better together. Now, this has taken my experience, my customer experience, and hopefully why I believe it's better together. First of all, a disclaimer on here. So a lot of these slides are from some VMware decks. I don't represent VMware. Voices here are my own. This is a community session. They're not represented from my company and they're not represented from VMware as well, so just keep that in mind. So a slight agenda, it's around 20 minutes, 25 minutes, so the agenda is only going to be small. A slight introduction to myself, some of the VDI challenges that I see from customers that are from around the business, and why I think Horizon and NSX are better together. So that's me, I'm Kyle Jenner. I work for Insight in the UK. I'm a solutions architect that's focused on VMware stack, so the full VMware SDDC stack, from the core vSphere, NSX, vSAN, vRealize, and Horizon as well. Certifications-wise, VCIX and DCV, NV, and VCAPS and DTM. Part of the community, I'm pretty heavy in the community, and this is part of it. This is all part of the community stuff that I like to do. So vExpert, kind of core, NSX more recently, in vSAN, and the EUC champion group as well. And if you want to connect, we can talk to me after this, but I'm on Twitter at KyleJennerUK, and there's a blog as well if you feel like checking that out. So some of the VDI challenges that I see with my customers, which I'll go over. I'll start with security. So traditionally, the endpoints and a traditional kind of solution you'll see would be kind of PCs and laptops. That'll be some sort of remote office or at home. Now that solution you could secure quite easily at the perimeter. And what you normally see is kind of north-south into the data center. A lot of security was at that point. The problems with those sort of solutions was it was difficult to manage AV centrally. It was very difficult to kind of manage patch management on that solution. People can be all over the world. They can be have different sort of devices and that sort of stuff. So moving to VDI solves a lot of those problems. We can control antivirus centrally. We can control patch management centrally. And we can move to a more kind of stateless desktop. And in that mean, when users log in, they'll get a new desktop. When they can log out, if it's configured a certain way, they can get a brand new, fresh desktop. You can virtualize the applications, and the user data can follow that user wherever they might be. But what it doesn't solve is some of the security issues. And with that, when you move the workloads in the data center, you create a larger attack surface. So suddenly you've got all these desktops within the data center that are more vulnerable, and you've got more east to west traffic flows, right? So you need to then think about how do you protect that. No longer are these devices at home and outside the network. We need to try and protect them within the data center. And this is an illustration. You've probably seen this illustration. It's been used quite a while, but it's just to illustrate further. So we've got the perimeter network was your old circle network, and that was your external network. Once the kind of desktop was compromised, which we've seen more recently with the WannaCry and ransomware attacks, you've seen this quite a bit. Once that attack's inside the network, there's nothing really to stop it moving around the network, or it's very difficult to stop that. And traditionally, the way to do it would be to install a firewall or firewall rules on every single workload, every single VM. Now, traditionally, you can do this, but it's very difficult. You've got a lot of access lists to manage, you've got a lot of firewalls and policies to manage, and it becomes very difficult. It's not very efficient. And to illustrate this further, you get the idea, right? It's the same process, so now we need to worry about users, how they get north to south, how they get out the internet. How do users talk to other users? How do we protect them from talking to other users? How do we access who can control certain, or who can access certain applications? Oracle Exchange, do they need to access them? And again, with the storage. One of the other challenges that I see is on the malware protection. So we can move it into a VDI environment, and you can install agents within there for the antivirus. But as you can see, I mean, on this example, I've got Kaspersky on there, but it can be any vendor whatsoever. If you want a stateless desktop, it's very difficult to install an agent and manage that centrally. And it can be very intensive having that agent running on the VM anyway. But if you have any EV scannings or any malware scannings at a certain time of day, that performance can affect the users really. And with VDI, the user performance is absolutely critical, you know. And patching, again, down to the WannaCry outbreak, patching becoming more and more important, and it's something you can't ignore. And the Windows updates, whether it's a user's laptop at home, user's PC, nobody likes them. We hate them as admins. Everybody hates them, apart from maybe Linux users. And in VDI, you still have to worry about Windows updates. It doesn't go away. You still got to worry about it. So, why I think they are better together, and hopefully I'll be able to show you how without doing any lab. I wasn't brave enough to do any labs, so it's just pictures. So traditional view environment, what we might see here is you've got a domain controller for authentication, we've got file servers, we've got VROPs for your monitoring, we've got login site connection servers for your connection brokers, UEM for the user's profiles and app volumes. Now on the left-hand side we've got server VMs, and then on the left-hand side we've got what you class as a desktop infrastructure. We've got desktop pools. They could be stateless desktops, they could be full-fat desktops, virtual desktops, whatever they might be. We've got desktop images, we could have multiple desktop images, application images as well, which we can virtualize, and user persona. So with UEM, the user's data can follow that user around. And now that's all well and good, but the challenges we meet that we've spoke about from there, so with kind of the traditional infrastructure, what we see there, we get centralized desktop management, we get centralized application and user data management, and we get patch management. Now, by using a gold image type, depending how it's all configured, we can easily manage the patch management within there, power up the gold image, get it all patched, and then roll that out to users. And as the users log on and log off, they'll get the new image. And with that, we can get stateless desktops. But we haven't met the security. We haven't met anything on the security front. And that's down to the large attack surface now. We can't just ignore that. We've met a lot of the challenges, but it's not something we can really ignore. And that's when we look at micro-segmentation. So micro-segmentation for NSX is distributed firewalling. It's stateful firewalling, and it reduces that attack surface. By putting firewalls on every single VM or every desktop, we can reduce that attack surface. We get centralized policy control, which we can easily automate through RESTful APIs. And we can have granular level controls down to security group and objects. But we can do this dynamically by things like VM names and tags, VM tags as well. We can automatically and dynamically change users, well, VMs, policies, security policies down to those tags. So NSX skewers VDI in a few different pillars, which I've covered here. So initially, we protect the server environment, so we can protect the security servers, the connection servers. Which VMs can be brokered by the connection server? Who can access them? If we need to access external access to the security servers, we can do this through NSX. We can access control between the components and compose the servers if you're still using link clones. And then we can go further down and protect the desktop pools. So per pool, you can have desktop-to-desktop protection. You might want to deny all desktop-to-desktop communication. You can deny desktop to enterprise applications. If there's some applications that users don't need to access, then you can prevent that through NSX. And then finally, we can integrate third-party security services, things like antivirus and anti-malware protection, so we can have agentless antivirus protection. And we can do all this by having access control per user, so we can do it per AD groups as well, so we can dynamically add people to groups and control it that way. And NSX does this by having a framework which is known as the Service Composer. And the Service Composer is built up of these components. So within the Service Composer itself, we get built-in tools that allow to provision firewall policies and security applications. We get the firewall services, which is your distributed firewall, which we touched on. And then you've got the guest introspection framework, which allows you to use the third parties to get the introspection antivirus network protection, intrusion protection services and things like that. So the Service Composer model, to drill in a bit further, you create things called security policies and protect them using security groups. Now a security policy is how you want to protect something, and a security group is simply what you want to protect. And a security policy can be built up through anything around traditional network-based policies, which can be kind of IPsec, MAC addresses, things that a lot of people are already used to. You can do infrastructure-based policies, which might be certain view pods. You might want to protect certain view pods, might have certain policies. Certain clusters might have certain policies. Application-based policies, which again, you could have tags on VMs, which might be, pool 1, pool 2, or you might you look at connection servers or security servers, and you can have policies based on that. And then security groups can be, well, you can add objects in manually, of course, but you can, things called static grouping, which is basically things that don't change. So your cluster, your logical switch, AD groups, things like that can all be part of security groups. Or you can have dynamic grouping, which we touched on briefly. So things like OS names, VM name, security tags. So if you change these security tags, change the OS name, VM name, it'll add it into the correct security group, which might have a certain policy. So you could have multiple policies looking at different security groups that you can move around VMs, and it's all done as soon as you change that. Then by using this composer model, we now take that same picture that we've seen before, but now we've got firewalls running on all the infrastructure services. We've got firewalls running on all the view pools as well. We've still got the desktop images, and we've still got application images and user data exactly the same way, but now we're protecting each of those VMs and workloads. We can also protect north to south if you want to. You don't need to do this through NSX, but it gives you that option to do that. We can have edge appliances, which can obviously do your north to south. We've got for your front end, whether that's security servers or or access gateways, whatever it might be, you can protect them that way. We can have firewalls in between, so between the security servers and connection servers, we only allow the ports that we need to allow through, and you can do all that again through NSX distributed firewall. External access in, we can just only permit relevant things, PC over IP, HTTPS, multimedia redirection, whatever it might be. And again, we can do all this through NSX. And further, there's a brief touch on this before. To control user access, we can control users' access anywhere through Horizon, which pool they get anyway, but we can further control it this way. So we can say a user's only able to access one certain desktop pool. In this example, it's a doctor's pool. Then that doctor can then get his internal apps, and he can also get secure potential patient data, which other users cannot. And we can do that all through user group-based access. Now this is more of an NSX slide. It's not really related to Horizon, but I thought I'd include it anyway. So we get a more efficient firewalling, if you like, through this. So traditionally, you'd always have to hairpin out back to the firewall for all even if it's on the same host, the VMs sitting next to each other on the same host. And now with NSX, we can do that distributed at the host level as well. And if you go host to host, we've got a two-wire hop to do that, just to go across to the next host. So it's far more efficient. This is more NSX in general, but it still relates to Horizon. So if you imagine you've got 1,000 desktops, that's a far more efficient way of doing it. Now, so what do we allow to access? Now, I come from a hands-on background, so I've delivered kind of Horizon projects, and one of the biggest bugbear and one of the biggest holdup for projects was this access point. Now, this comes from a KB. If you've deployed Horizon yourself, you've seen this KB. And it's very good. It tells you what the source and the destination, what ports you need to allow. And that's all well and itself, but if you deal with large companies, you've got to deal with security companies, security departments, you've got to deal with networking teams, and this can take a lot of time. And this, for me personally, this was one of the biggest holdups for most of the projects, was getting this right. And if you might get 90% of it right, but there's always that one port or the two ports that don't work, and you've got to troubleshoot that, and you've got to go back to the security team, and this takes a long time. And you've probably all seen this network port diagram. This is one of 20. It's very good and it's very useful, but when you try and pass this to a security team or a networking team, it takes a lot of time, and it takes a lot of heartache to get this ready and get it working. So with NSX, we still have to do it. Well, this is one example where you can do it manually, but you've got control. As a VMware admin, as the guy that deploys it, you've got the control of it. And in this example, we've got, I think at the top there, I've got VDI desktops talking to VDI desktops as allowed. And we've got desktops talking to connection servers. So these are the security groups that I was talking about. You basically add those desktops or the connection servers to those security groups. And the services are which ports we allow. Now that's still a manual process. I'll come back to that actually. So this is another example, slightly different, but you kind of see where we're getting at. So you get desktop to desktop, this time we'll block. So that's all east to west between the desktops. And then we've got view clients talking to the connection service further down, what's allowed. This example is from Horizon 6, but it's the same. You get the idea, it's the same thing. Now that's still a manual process. Now to automate this and make it easier for you guys and for all of us, VMware have a fling. It's on that link below, but if you need it afterwards, come and see me. And this will automatically insert them services into NSX. It saves you going around creating them, saves you finding the ports and having to create them manually. It creates empty security groups in which you can add your either desktops or connection service to the security groups. And there, by default, it creates those rules that are there. Now, I'll not go through them, but that's what it does by default. You can obviously add to it, or you can change them if you like. But this will save you quite a lot of time, and I recommend if you check it out as well. And this is what it looks like. So we've got them security groups by default, and the firewall rule there, the quality isn't very good, but you can see what's there and what it looks like. It already creates that part for you. Now, there's Pascal van der Boer is added to it, so if you go to the link for the fling, it'll send you to this link anyway, but he has his own YAML file on GitHub where he's added things like SQL Server management, app volume management, that sort of stuff. So check that out. You can either download the file yourself, change what you need to match your infrastructure, and then use that. And you can use this one and many times, you know. You don't have to then go through the process manually every time you set this up. We see how it brings all that control to you rather than relying on security teams and network teams to bring it all together. So that's micro-segmentation, and one of the other use cases that I see, well, that's one of the biggest use cases of micro-segmentation I see, but one of the next cases is around security. So we can leverage what used to be endpoint for vSphere. You can now do the agentless anti-malware protection, and it does this by using the introspection for the VMs. So you don't have to have an agent based on every single VM. We can do this through the NSX manager and integrating Trend Micro or Palo, whatever it might be, your third-party security vendor. And with this, we can, down to that dynamic group in which I mentioned before, we can add tags. So as Trend Micro picks up actually I've got, it'd be easier showing this. You've probably seen this animation a few times as well. So in this example, we've got the security group. So the VMs here on the right-hand side, I've got a security group called Standard. Now they've got their standard policies that you normally find. Antivirus scanning's going on at the host level. And as soon as a virus is picked up, its security group there, if you see at the top, has been changed. And as it's been changed, as it's been tagged, it's been changed and put in a different security group. So Trend will put that tag on for antivirus virus found onto the VM, and that'll effectively put it in a different security group. Now you can have a policy on that group which effectively can block all traffic incoming and outgoing, which effectively quarantines the VM from the network. Now you can let Trend or whatever the product might be to go and clean that up, or you can be alerted to go and either, if it's a desktop, you might want to just delete the desktop and recreate it. And once you're happy with it, you just simply, or Trend can, just simply remove the tag and it'll go back to its standard security group. And there's no agent on the desktop, there's no performance hit on the desktop, and it's all done at the host level. So with that, we've got agent malware protection, and we've got micro-segmentation. So apart from the security reason, the NSX for Horizon has some additional use cases as well. So because we can provision switching and firewall, switching and routing rules all in software, we can easily expand and spin down new networks. So if you've got new pools that need a different subnet, they need a different network, you don't have to go and create a new VLAN, you don't need to go to speak to this network team. We can do all that in NSX. And we could even create a production or a test environment, if you like, that mimics production, that can all be isolated through NSX as well. We've got kind of edge services as well, load balancing, edge firewalls and that sort of stuff. The load balancing, have I gone to a slide? No. So the load balancing, obviously with Horizon Connection Service, you normally have it behind a load balancer at some point, externally and internally. This does do NSX. It's not as feature-rich as some of the kind of F5 load balancers, if you like, but it does do the job, and it comes with NSX as well. It might save you some money on that front. And again, this is more of an NSX-related slide, but it relates to the firewall and slide as well, if you like. So if we were using distributed routing as well, which we haven't really touched on, but you can do distributed routing as well. And with that, we get efficient routing, really. So we could have multiple pools on different subnets, and if the VMs, again, it come down to 1,000, 2,000 VMs, whatever it might be, we can get a far more efficient routing between that. We're not going out to whatever's doing your routing on your network and coming back in. And again, I touched back on the load balancer. So again, it's not really a feature-rich load balancer as some of the F5s or whatever, or what other vendors might be, but it does out the box and it does do the job as well. And I think this might be my last slide. So, and just a typical kind of deployment, what you might see, where you've got a desktop cluster and your compute cluster with NSX running. That'll be in a cross vCenter configuration as well. And that's it. So there's some resources that I've used. Like I say, I've used some of the slide decks from VMware, and there's some blogs on there as well. All right, thank you.